just prayed my preach, so there's not really much that I need to do. So I planned something completely different yesterday, and then when I woke up this morning, God said, no, you're gonna speak on something else.
Wow. I love it.
Stand by.
I don't love it when that happens, Heather, because it means that then
You've got previous for this.
I know, and then so basically I've only prepared the preach this morning, so it's not going to be a long one because I've only had like 2 hours. But yeah, I just felt obviously with the storm and what's happening in the natural and in the physical, that really means something quite significant in the spiritual, and I think that it's just a really good message to hear and really what God has been speaking to me about this morning. So obviously the storm is going on. It's currently causing floods in some local areas. You can hear it now. And she's been called Kira, Storm Kira. And you know, God has previous in this. This is not the first storm by any stretch of the imagination. So this morning I'm going to speak from Luke chapter 8 from verse 22. And it's a story that appears in 3 of the Gospels, in Matthew, Mark and in Luke. And it goes like this. One day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side of the lake." So they got into a boat and set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep. A squall came down on the lake, so that the boat was being swamped, and they were in great danger. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided, and all was calm. "Where is your faith?" he asked his disciples. In fear and amazement they asked one another, "Who is this? He commands even the winds and the waters, and they obey him." So I don't know about you, but I hate boats. I hate being on boats. I really am someone that prefers dry land. I don't even like going in the little pedaloos at shipping park because I just feel so out of control. I just really don't like them. And I think that all stems from going to Centre Parks once when I was a lot younger. And there's not even that big a lake there. It's, you know, you can see from the other side, and I bet if you fell in, you could even touch the floor with your feet. But for some reason, I just really didn't like it. So my mum and dad were like, "Oh, let's do a fun family activity," and you just know that's never going to end well. And so we went kayaking, and we're not an active family in terms of water sports. And so I get in this kayak, and I absolutely hate it. I can't control where it goes. So I'm rowing, but it's going in the complete opposite direction as to where I want to be. So I end up just getting stuck in the side, crying and sobbing because I can't go where I want to go. My sisters have just kayaked off. I don't even know if that's a verb, but they've kayaked off. And so I'm just stuck there at the side crying. So the man has to drag me round the jetty to help me get out. And they're like, "Well, we've paid now, you've got to do it." So then they gave me this 2-person kayak, and then my dad gets in with me. I'm about 14 years old, so I'm not embarrassingly young. I am like a teenager, and so my dad gets in, and then it was absolutely fine because he can control it, and he knows how to do it, and he knows where he's going, and I just felt so much more relieved, and the pressure was off because I didn't have to steer it or control it. And I thought that's such a good illustration for life, isn't it? That, I can't do it on my own, but when I've got my Heavenly Father there with me, it is so much easier, it's so much better. I go in the right direction, I'm able to go at the speed that I need to go. And I just thought that, this story really speaks about how God is in control. And so I'm going to go through 6 points, they're really small points, but 6 points I think that we can learn from this chapter in Luke. And it starts off, doesn't it, by saying they set off. The disciples had to go into the boat to get to the other side of the lake. They were going somewhere, and it's the same with us. Our lives are not static, they're not stuck in one place. We sometimes have to get in the boat, we have to go somewhere, we have to go on a journey. And all our lives are different, we're all going to go on different journeys. But God calls us to go, He calls us to do something. We're not meant to be static, we're not meant to stay in one place. And in the journey of life, there's always going to be circumstances, there's always going to be things that go wrong, unfortunately. It's not an if, it's a when. It says in John 16:33, doesn't it, that I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will have suffering in this world. Be courageous, I have conquer the world. We are going to come across trials. There are going to be setbacks in life. No one in the Bible had an easy life, and also we're the same. We know from our own lives and the lives of those around us, don't we, of circumstances such as illness and bereavement and financial difficulties and unemployment and relationship breakdowns. We know that life can be tough. And there's a rapper actually called Cardi B who, I wouldn't recommend that you go and search her music, it's not the most Christian, but there is one song that she does that's got the line, knock me down 9 times but I get up 10. Like, that's sometimes how life is, isn't it? Like, we get knocked down all the time, we get taken out by a wave sometimes, but it's about how we get up, it's about how we overcome that, it's about how we get back and doing life again. One of my favourite films recently was Frozen 2. Janet's not here because she's another one who gets, revelation from Frozen. And there's a bit in it, I'll try not to any spoilers, but there's a bit in it where one of the main characters, Anna, gets stuck in a really dark cave. She's all alone, she's got no one with her. It's a really desperate and heartbreaking situation. But then she sings this incredible song that's all about doing the next right thing, about getting up, about not staying in that hopeless place, but about getting up and getting out of that cave, getting out of that situation. And even when the storms are raging, she gets up and she fights it. And it's about overcoming that adversity sometimes. Like, we will have the thunder and the lightning, but God says that He's going to get us through that. So the next part that I want to talk about is the next line where it says, so they set out, and as they were sailing, He fell asleep, referring to Jesus. So during this massive storm, during the waves crashing and, things going absolutely haywire, it says that Jesus fell asleep, which I just absolutely love. That's my favourite bit. Because sometimes it might look, doesn't it, like Jesus is sleeping on the job? Like, you're going through this really difficult patch in your life and you're just like, Jesus, where are you? What are you doing? Why are you just lying in the boat asleep? But actually what Jesus is doing, what He's illustrating, is that that's the position that we should be in. We should be resting in the storm. We should be sleeping in the storm and resting in His presence. Because we can rest in the knowledge, can't we, that the storms of life will not overwhelm us. They will not drown us. And we're supposed to have that same position that Jesus has. Because we know that we've got security and we've got refuge in God. It says in Psalm 4 verse 8, in peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. We've just sang that, God is our dwelling place. He is our hiding place. So if ever we feel restless or scared or unsure, we know exactly who we can run to. We know exactly who we can call upon. And we can rest in that knowledge. We don't have to struggle or strive. We can just rest in the knowledge that God is in control and God is sovereign. I can just imagine, like, if I was in that situation, like in the kayak, that I would be like struggling, I'd be panicking, I'd be, overcompensating, and I would just be like panicking and getting myself in a tears. And I can imagine the disciples, were doing everything they could have done to keep the boat afloat. I can imagine they were pulling on ropes and they were rowing and things like that. And actually Jesus just says, no, stop, slow down, have a rest, have a pray, trust God. You don't need to keep rowing in circles. You don't need to keep striving and searching for that. You can just rest in the promises of God, rest in His faithfulness, and rest in His trust. Because sometimes, no matter what our actions or our efforts, all we can do is leave it up to God. All we can do is pray. Like Heather just prayed, with people that are ill, sometimes all we can do is just give them over to God, to lay them down at His feet and say, God, you are in control, you can look after this situation. This is a storm that I'm helpless in, but we're never helpless because we've always got God, we've always got hope. And God didn't fail the disciples in this story, and He's never going to fail us either. So the third point I want to make is the power and the authority. Jesus had the power and the authority to calm the storm. This was a miracle just as much as the miracles of healing, the miracles of provision, and the miracles of raising people from the dead. This was a miracle of Jesus' power and authority shining through God's glory, that He has control over the storm. He has control over the wind and the waves and the natural elements. So when the disciples were in mortal danger, they were in fear for their life. God rescued them and God saved them. And Jesus does the same for us spiritually as well. He'll do it when we're in physical danger, I've no doubt, but He'll also do it spiritually. He has done when he saved us from death, when he saved us from the mortal danger that was hell. You know, God gave his son, Jesus, so that we could might have life and life to the fullest. And that is such an incredible miracle, that Jesus has the power and the authority, because he was there at the creation of the world. He has dominion over it all, and over all our circumstances, over all our situations, even the wind and the waves obey him. He has that power. And another great example of this from the Bible is another water-based example, and that was when the Israelites were fleeing from the Egyptians, when they were in Egypt under slavery, and they managed to get out and they managed to leave. But the problem was there was a big sea in front of them, and the enemy was coming up behind them. They were pursuing them, and they were fleeing for their lives. And so they come up against what looks to be an insurmountable obstacle, and they've got an enemy coming from behind them. So what did they do? Did they panic? Did they scream? Did they just go, okay, this is it, this is how we're going to die, we're trapped, we're stuck? No, God made a way. God used his power and his authority to push back the seas, to make a path, to make a way for them. He had the power and the authority to part the Red Sea. He had the power and the authority to calm the storms. And God has the power and the authority in our lives and over our lives to help us in our situations, to give us safe passage, to help us and to save us. The enemy had no way of catching them up. And our God does make a way. Any blockages, any barriers, any setbacks, he will make a way. He will create a route. He can part the seas. So God is powerful and God has authority. And so if we just obey him, if we just rest in him, if we just trust him, that power and authority is available to each and every one of us. So the next one I want to talk about is peace. It says in the passage, then he got up and he rebuked the wind and the raging waves, so they ceased and they were calm. How amazing, in the midst of a gigantic storm, that Jesus just woke up, took over the situation, and he just told off the winds and the waves. He just rebuked them. He just said with a word, be still, be calm. What a contrast, what a change with a word. Can you imagine now when we're hearing the thunder and the lightning and the rain and the wind, that suddenly after Jesus spoke a word, it'd all just stop. It'd all just go calm. How incredible, how amazing that that's all that it took. And the same with our storms of life. When it feels messy and chaotic, that God could just come, say a word, and bring peace. It says in John 14:27, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Don't let your heart be troubled or fearful. And Jesus was saying that to his disciples who were about to be in desperate need of God's peace. That was just before he was about to die on the cross and be taken away. And the fact that Jesus can say that in that moment knows that they're about to go through difficult situations. He knows they're about to face circumstances that is going to really test them, really, cause them to need peace. And God says that to us, like, there are going to be situations where you're going to need peace, but I can leave you peace. And I can give you peace in situations where human peace would not be able to have any effect. We have complete reconciliation with God, don't we, because of what he's done for us. And that means we can live in peace. We have peace over our lives because we're back in relationship with God. And it means that we have a hope, that we don't need to be afraid, we don't need to be fearful. We can be bold and we can be courageous because we know that we've got God on our side. What a boldness and what a confidence that can give us. What an amazing promise. Dawn spoke about promises last week, didn't she, about God's faithfulness. And one of the amazing gifts that he also gives us is his peace. It says in Philippians 4 verse 7 that, and the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So Jesus will protect us from all anxiety, all worry, all stress and all pressure if we just receive that gift of peace. If we just allow him to enter into our hearts and our minds to give us that peace. As we seek him and seek his face, by his word, through spending time in his presence, through worshiping and praising him, we will feel his peace. He never leaves us empty-handed. Like Heather said, we've got that God-shaped hole in our hearts. And God just wants to fill that with his love and with his peace. So it says in Isaiah 26:3, you will keep in peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. I would love a steadfast mind. A mind that's not constantly worrying, a mind that's not constantly worrying. Imagine if we could just have that steadfast mind to trust in God and know that no matter what the situation, God has got it. Then and only then will the storms of life not overwhelm us. They will not drown us. They will not burden us, because we will have God's peace. And then the passage goes on to say, doesn't it, that after he calmed the storm, so he'd done the miracle, he calmed the storm, looks like the danger's, gone and they're going to be okay. He then turns to them and he says, "Where was your faith? What was that all about? What was the panic for?" I can just imagine the look on his face of, what were you worrying about? That was nothing. But, you can see that they're clearly in fear because, we are human. We're all going to fear, aren't we? We're all going to go through situations where we're like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But Jesus can sometimes look at us, can't he, sometimes and say, "Come on, where's your faith? You've got me, where's your faith? Don't panic, just pray." Because we sometimes need to ask ourselves, don't we, where are our faith levels at? What are we believing for? What do we think we're going to be able to cope with? Because sometimes our faith can be steadfast. We can go through life knowing that God's got it. But sometimes our faith levels can be wavering. Or I know certainly mine have in the past. Depending on the situation, depending on the circumstances, depending on my emotions and how I'm feeling, my faith can wobble like that. But actually God says, no, your faith can be strong and it can be true and it can be unswerving. It says in Hebrews 6:19 that we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Faith is not meant to be wavering. It's not meant to be ever-changing. It's not meant to be like the weather. It's meant to be the same. It's meant to be a constant. It's meant to be enduring. It's meant to be persevering. And anchors, once you drop an anchor, that boat's not going anywhere. That is going to stay so firm and so secure in the bedrock of the sea. And that's what our faith can be like. We can drop an anchor in God, in His Word, and know that we have that hope and we have that faith that's not going to change. Our salvation is secure. When we know Jesus and we've been saved by Him and we've been born again, we know where we're going. We know that we're going to heaven. And so what we can do is stand upon that promise, be firm and secure, knowing Him, being planted and rooted in Him, knowing exactly who He is and He has got it and we know where we're going. It says in Hebrews 11 that faith is the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. I love that version because it talks about reality, it talks about proof, it talks about evidence. And we've got that in the form of testimonies, in the form of the stories from the Bible. We know God has brought people through those situations and we can be sure, we can be confident that He's going to do the same thing with us. Anchors stop us drifting, they stop us from being bounced around. So we know that when we pray, we are firmly rooted in God. We are stuck in Him. We can know and know and know that He has got us. We just need to be fixed on Him, keep our eyes on the prize, keep our eyes on God, knowing in our hearts and minds that He has got us, that He is sovereign, that He is in control, and the storms of life will not overcome us. There's a worship song that we used to sing all the time that also encapsulates how we should view God in the storms of life. Because usually storms are a bit scarier, they just seem a bit more threatening when it's dark, when you can't see what you're doing, when you don't know where you're going, when you don't know what's up ahead, you don't know if you're going to land on rocks and your boat's going to be smashed up. But actually, the worship song said that God is like a lighthouse to us. And the reason why they built lighthouses was so that boats could navigate back to the shore. And God does exactly the same to us. He is our lighthouse when we need to get back to Him. When we don't know where we're going, when it's dark, when it's scary, when it's confusing, God says, I am your lighthouse. Look for me, look for my light, and I will guide you back to safety. I will guide you back to the shore. They shine a beam of light and we can follow that light, and that light is Jesus. It says Jesus is the light of the world. He is our lighthouse. He is our navigational aid to help us go where we need to go. He will always make a way back for us. So if you're going through the storms of life and you don't know Jesus or have a relationship with Jesus, I just really want to encourage you, God can help you. Jesus can help you. He will be there for you. He will be the light in the darkness to guide you back, and He will calm the storms of your life. You can trust in Jesus. You can put your hope in Him, your faith in Him, knowing that He can be like an anchor for your life. He can protect you and He can be your refuge and your dwelling place, and you can go back to the shore, which is where God's love is, where God's kindness is, His mercies and His graces. If you just believe in Him and agree to follow Him, like the disciples did to Jesus, then He will guide you and He will love you and He will come to you. He'll come running to you. And so the final thing I want to share is what was the disciples' response? After all this had happened, after they'd received this miracle, after after they'd been told off for not having any faith, they just looked at Jesus, and they just looked at him in absolute awe and in wonder and in respect and in reverence, because they'd just seen the power of Jesus, the authority of Jesus, of what he is capable of. And we can read about that in the Bible. We can read exactly who Jesus is, exactly what he's done for us, and we can have that same sense of respect and awe for what he's done and who he is. And the only other response really is praise, is worship, is thank you. It's just receiving it, accepting it, and believing it. You know, they could have been so overwhelmed, but instead they just go, wow, Jesus, you're incredible, you're amazing. You're the only one that could have done that. And he is the only name we can call upon. He's the only person that can calm the storms. He's the only one that can bring peace and be our refuge and to save us. So we're all going on a journey, aren't we? We're all going to face storms in life. But we can know and we can trust that Jesus is our sanctuary. He is our refuge, and we can rest in the safety and security of him. Jesus has the power and the authority over the storms of life. He is a miracle-working God, and he can bring that peace and that calm to messy and chaotic situations. And our faith in Jesus should align with the promises of God, that we know he is our hope that is as firm as an anchor, and we don't need to be overwhelmed by the circumstances around us. And our faith should be based on him and not our life. And our response to all this can just be wonder. It can just be amazement. It can be astonishment and awe. And we can just worship and praise him for who he is and what he's done. So let's pray. God, thank you so much for who you are, Lord. Thank you that you are bigger. You are so much bigger, Lord, than the storms that we might face, God. You know, sometimes it can seem scary and overwhelming, like we don't know what's going on. But God, you are in control. You are sovereign. In the wind and the waves, even they obey you. And so, Lord, help us to obey you. Help us to just follow you, God, and to just know that we can come to you when we need to. When we need that rest, when we need your presence, Lord. God, help us to just know that you are our refuge. Let us really feel that in our souls this week. That you are our anchor in the storm, Lord. You are our lighthouse, bringing us back to shore, God. Into the shore of your love. Into your arms of just compassion for us, Lord. Thank you that you give us your peace. Peace that we cannot even explain, Lord. Your peace that you bring through the Holy Spirit, that you just drop into our souls, Lord, so that when things do seem unbearable, God, that you are there with us. You are in the boat with us, Lord. We are not on our own drifting out to sea. God, you are right there next to us. You are there in the kayak and telling us where to go and doing it for us. That we are not doing this on our own. You never leave us, Lord. You never forsake us. And so thank you, God, that even as the storms are raging, you are there. And if we've just come out of a storm or about to go into one, Lord, help us to know this wisdom from your word, that we can just trust in you, Lord. We can put our faith and surety in you and come to you with a boldness and a confidence to say, God, I need my Saviour. I need rescuing. But Lord, you always answer. You never, ever fail us. You've never let us down, and you're not going to start now. In Jesus' name.